Hello, Derek. Are you ready?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Okay. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This is Paul Liu from NC State University. Welcome you again to this World River and Delta System Source to Think webinar series. And today is the number 61 of the talk in 2021. So this is our last talk this year. And so we welcome to Dr. Dhritiraj Sengupta from East China Normal University come here to talk about land reclamation in the Anthropocene, the global trend, and also what the drivers for the major coastal geo-engineering project. So this topic is a little bit different from the previous River and Delta series, but it's strongly related because when we talk about the shoreline retreat or shoreline progression in a Delta region, the reclamation and also human activities for geo-engineering project always modifier for the shoreline dynamic change. So once again, this is our 61 talks. In the past, we have total 35 talks in 2020 and 60, this is 61 so far. Total, we have already 95 talks archived on our YouTube channel. Also in Bilibili, Chinese Bilibili station, you're welcome to use any of these talks for your research and the education purpose for in the classroom particularly. And so at the same time, as we mentioned before, we also have a Source to Think channel on Twitter. So you're welcome to follow us. So as I mentioned, today is the last talk in 2021. In next year, after the new year, we have already lined up many great talks already in the spring. Looks like a pandemic cannot go away in a short term. If you look at the case all over the world, and now it's a spark again. So we hope the pandemic can be under control, so we can meet face to face. And we can travel freely. We also can conduct our field work. But anyway, as you can see, if you are able, you are willing, or if you know somebody could also contribute a source to think related talk, please let us know. We will try our best to schedule them. So Dhritiraj got his master degree from India, Mysore University, and then he was visiting research in the Department of Geography and Environmental Study, University of Cape Town, South Africa, and also a fellow of Future Earth Coast. And now, currently, he is a postdoc at the SKLEC Lab of Coastal and Estuary Study, East China Normal University. His research interesting is kind of combined, integrate the real world data and understand the coastal dynamic in a large delta system. And his background also both the humanity and the physical science. So he will help us understand the human impact to the coastal environment. So Derek, now you can share your screen and put a presentation mode.
Yes. Can you see my screen?
Yes. Very good.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Professor Liu, and everyone at the Source to Think team, everyone co-sponsoring and sponsoring this whole brilliant series. I'm very honored to be part of this Source to Think, because I've been following it since past 2 years, and I always wanted to interact with the audience. So today, as Professor Liu mentioned, we're going to talk about coastal land reclamation. This topic I'm completely obsessed with because I started my PhD looking at urban expansion, and I looked at coastal cities. Coastal cities were expanding inland, but when I saw cities like Dubai and Shanghai and other cities were actually expanding outside towards the ocean, and that was something was fascinating for me. And I'm going to my PhD was basically to look at the trends and patterns, and I still do that in a long way. But before I start, I represent three organizations. There's Future Earth Coast. They're lovely guys, and I'm a fellow of the Future Earth Coast, along with the International Geographical Union, the Commission of Coastal System, and the Asia Geography Group. It's a young working group. And in all of these, I basically do social media marketing. I promote coastal science and coastal geoscience with help of these organizations, and I'm very proud to represent them today. So beginning with, like, I would start with this United Nations projection of looking at where there will be these mega cities. Mega cities are cities where the population is more than 10 million. So you're looking at, if you look at this cluster in Asia and Southeast Asia, there has been prediction of an immense expansion of mega cities in next 10 years, in next 9 years, to be very honest. And this sort of expansion of cities, sometimes in the congested coastal frontier, you do not have space to really expand. I cannot imagine Mumbai expanding anymore how it is right now. So many cities around the world, historically as well, and now particularly in the 21st century, are trying to build land, are trying to reclaim or claim land from the sea. And that has been the trend previously in the 20th century and 19th century. We all know about Netherlands and how they reclaimed land to basically for agricultural or flood protection. But what I discovered or kind of research is that the 21st century reclamation goes beyond just flood protection. There is urban expansion, real estate, and also ports. Ports play a dominant role in an economy, and as global trade is increasing, they need physical space to keep the containers, to have more ships, and so ports need to expand as well. And I'm going to give you a kind of a story of the whole world on how these cities are expanding. But in my PhD, I looked at more than 35 cities. I looked at the economy, I looked at the geography, and how they are reclaiming land to meet this demand of future expansion. And land plays a dominant role in any economy. And probably you all have seen, you all know Dubai as a hub of growing economy in the Middle East, and that's probably a kind of an human footprint on the sea, which you may see from the space, or anytime you fly over Dubai. And these are Palm Jumeirah. There's the world, which is being constructed at the moment. But again, these are highly questionable projects. They face enormous economic back end because of the erosion happening in the sea and the land loss going on because of scarcity of sand, and how they're going to maintain it. It's a big question. And so there's trillion dollars went inside constructing these, and you can imagine the environmental impact, but also the economic setback related to the pandemic or an economic recession in 2008 when it was just started constructing. But you're also familiar with Dubai, and when I looked at mega cities, really, where population, Dubai is not a mega city, it's not population more than 10 million. But when you look at mega cities, probably we have a question that if these cities are reclaiming or not. The answer is yes, they are. But I looked at in my PhD, I looked at 3 different scales, and there was a global overview. So thanks to the JRC, the Joint Research Commission, and the European Space Agency, where they published this paper in 2016. When I started my PhD in 2016, without any coding background, with Google Earth Engine, I was able to use this data set because this was showing the surface water change. So what you see in this picture is a picture of Aral Sea, which dried up over the last 30 years. And all the red markings, all the red here are basically, so all the red over here is basically the land loss. So they are dry up now. And I use the same concept really. What if we invert this data set? So what is no water is basically land. So I inverted this data set, the interpretation, I didn't invert the data set, I inverted the interpretation of this data set. And then what you can see now that in Dubai, where they have built water, is basically the water has been lost, right? So you can calculate those pixels which are in red, and then you can calculate how much of these land has been built away from the coast. And of course, you need to remove the coast, you need to mask it out. And there were a lot of technical difficulties that how you define what is being built by humans or what is being natural accretion as well. There are ways that you can distinguish between what is, for example, Dubai, this is a human structure. We all know that. Sometimes it becomes a bit tricky to really understand if this is a natural accretion or it's built by humans or both, if it's being influenced by human intervention. But something like these, where the sand is being lifted up from one place and dropped at some other place, is something very fascinating. And so I used Google Earth Engine and the global surface water data set to kind of get a global overview, because in an Earth Engine, you can do cloud computing, you can actually do a planetary scale analysis, and that was very helpful for me to give a global overview. And so I did that, and I looked at every country in the world to see if there was any sort of land gain and expansion. And I was not looking to particularly land reclamation, because many places they have gained land, but it's not reclamation, it's sedimentation or something else. But then when you look at land gain, when I got the first data, was looking at China, because China has this historically has been reclaiming land quite substantially. And so what I found out is that there is significant amount of land being gained in China. And this global overview kind of helps me to really focus in Southeast and South Asia. Because these cities, I was just looking at the data and I say, why these countries like these are expanding land? And 36, almost 30,000 square kilometers was just gained in China. That's about 20% of the global land. But if you look at city of Shanghai, where I lived for the last 6 years, and I love it there. According to my research, this is the largest land reclamation project ever. Shanghai has reclaimed more than 580 square kilometers in last 30 years, and it's still expanding. If you look at this split map, you'll see that from 2000 and just 2020, this enormous new town was developed. It's called Dingdang New Town, was developed in matter of just 20 years from an. You can see the land use as well, from an agricultural or an aquacultural land use is changed to a semi-urban or plantation and agricultural land use. And of course, the Dishui Lake in the center, this lake acts as a sponge city kind of concept. That's what is written in the board when you go there. I don't know how much it works though. But as well, Shanghai is still expanding. You can see these new dikes have been constructed, and these dikes are trapping sediments, helping the sediments to grow. But something unique about Shanghai is, again, what kind of research I did is that 50% or 40% of these land being gained in Shanghai is now used for green. I don't know what that exact green is, but there's a push for coastal protection. There's a push for agricultural land uses, and also plantations, commercial plantation. Really, that's kind of experience we had doing the field work. But also very close to Shanghai, there's Chongming Island, again, the very big reclamation that's been reclaimed for an artificial wetland park just to restore that coastal environment. So Shanghai is a very unique example. Although it's the biggest reclamation, there's a lot of effort being given to bring back the green. But not all cities are able to do that. Colombo in Sri Lanka just built this massive port. It's still under construction, by the way. They just built the land. It's still under construction. They're building a port, an eco city, and a massive residential complex. And that's how this very weird shape, and a seawall has been built right next to this reclaimed land. And fascinatingly, this was just built. You can go to Google Earth or any other time series map. This was just built in the last 5 years, and there's enormous amounts of, you can imagine, there's something I'm really interested to know how much sand is being used. And sand, from other talks you have, sand is very critical as a resource now. There's a lot of attention being given to sand. I'm very interested from where the sand is coming from, which mangrove forest the sand is coming from, how we are destroying that mangrove forest to build this mega structure at the coast, putting, at a time when scientists are saying to go back away from the coast. There are many cities around the world which are going ahead towards the coast. And not only that, it's not just in Asia. In St. Petersburg, in Europe, in Russia, there's two structures are being built. One on the top is basically, again, you can see those buildings. They're residential areas, high-end residential commercial plots, which again was reclaimed in a matter of 2 or 3 years. And so you're putting in a lot of people in those places there, in these new apartment buildings, and of course for port expansion as well. So there's multi-use of why this land being built at a time when we are afraid and scared about sea level rise and coastal flooding. So very interested to again to peek into civil engineering aspect of these mega structures, really to really look into how this land is being built, where the sand is coming from, what is the future of these reclaimed land. Because there are other cities who reclaimed land during the World War II and World War I. So Japan is a very good example, Netherlands, and even US. Much of Los Angeles port is reclaimed, San Francisco is reclaimed, and other cities in the US. The West reclaimed a lot in the 19th century, and something is very coming up now is that reclamation is going huge in Asia at the moment with the drive of the economy, with the population and demand for land. So I have looked at this as well. This is coming very soon, and hopefully I will be able to submit this around about this week. I did a global study to look at 130 cities around the world to see which cities are really reclaiming. And the cluster really comes in Southeast Asia. And if you look at all the sea level rise papers which got published in Nature, Sustainability last month, and any other, you pick it up, they all pinpoint into Southeast Asia and how these cities are vulnerable. At the time when sea level rise is projected to be vulnerable, these cities are not going back, but these cities are going forward. They are building more land to meet their demand. But something technical, just want to point out something technical about this is that most of the sea level rise projections are done using digital elevation models. These digital elevation models were constructed or were built in early 2000. And since 2000 and 2020, the coastline of these cities have completely changed. So in the recent sea level rise projections and coastal flooding exposure, the reclaimed land is not considered. So what you look at here, the black area is the extent of SRTM for Shanghai. The red ones are all the reclaimed land in Shanghai. So if you're using coastal dam, which is from Climate Central, they miss about 500 square kilometers of land, which is being built in Shanghai. So you're completely off with your sea level rise projection and estimation. And the same goes for Dubai as well. Coastal dam do not consider the Palm Jumeirah and the world, which is being constructed in last 10, 15 years, because you're using SRTM. SRTM was built in 2000, and it doesn't include. The global human settlement layer doesn't include any reclaimed land in Bahrain. The ball pop doesn't include any reclaimed land. So you're missing a very significant amount of people and sand and human footprint at the coast, which are not being considered at the moment because of the fact that we are using kind of an old, outdated digital elevation models. And so what you're having now is that you see this expansion of cities. On your left is, on my left, is the Haiku. It's in Hainan in China. It's an island, tropical island in China. And this construction, although has been stopped in China, but as you can see, much of the reclamation has been done already. So there's a very fancy flower coming up there. In Jakarta, it's another tricky city. Jakarta, as you know, is the fastest sinking city in the world. Land subsidence rate crossed 11 centimeters per year. But again, Dan, Jakarta is building land. So as you can see over this place here, as it pops out here, this land is being built for high-end residential and a golf course. So at the time of this city trying to move to a rainforest, the city is still building and reclaiming land, and more has been planned, and more sand is needed for this, and these sand will obviously come from tropical forests and mangrove forests. So the huge concern about this, but even in China, when I looked at the Chinese cities, all have I would say 70 to 80% of the Chinese coast is reclaimed. So not only Dubai builds all fancy structures. This is in North China, in Qinghuangdao, where they built this. It's very fantastic high-end residential complex. In Tianjin, the port is completely reclaimed. It's the largest port in the world. Completely has a huge pressure to grow, and so they need more land. They have reclaimed land substantially. Although Bohai Bay is quite susceptible to sea level rise and coastal flooding, mega cities like Shenzhen, Guangzhou, Ningbo, all these cities have grown tremendously in last 10 to 15 years. And although the government have now stopped in early 2018, the Ecological Commission in China have stopped giving permissions to build more land, to get more land from the sea. But there are these land being built. And so on this land, there will be some land users. And when they come in, we'll be able to calculate what will be the impact or the risk from there. Another example in Indonesia, in Masaka, in Indonesia, where this again a fancy what a co-author of my Yongche says quotes this as a prestige construction, because these construction are just built for pride, really, because this is a high-end government complex being built in Masaka in Indonesia, and it just shows, just to show the prestige. So construction in Dubai is nothing to be reflect on the global map that yes, we are there. And these sort of prestige constructions are happening everywhere around the world. And these even in Europe, cities like Copenhagen they launched a new program where they're going to build a new artificial land to have houses for 30,000 people. High end, it's not for people who can afford it. It's always tagged as high end commercial housing. It's not for people from Mumbai and slum going to those land and living. It's high end commercial living. And so something I was talking about, the built up really, and it's a very, very simple built up. When you look at vegetation, water, and built up. So the land use over here, I looked at all these cities. These are mega cities in Asia, and most of them are built up. So you see, it's all orange. It's all built up. There's water because sometimes there is a wetland park or it is water reservoirs. There's a little bit of water there. But Singapore and Shanghai they're historically reclaiming land. Singapore, I would say 50% is reclaimed. And now Singapore is now going towards greening those reclaimed lands. So you see this greening of the coast happening very frequently in these mega cities. But in Africa, when you move from Asia to Africa, many Western African cities like Abidjan, Mombasa, Lagos, and Rwanda, these cities are expanding a lot. They are building out land for expansion of their ports, for growing their economies. And reclamation is playing a major role in in building their economy and ports. But other than that, previously, which are known and famous for reclamation, like Rotterdam port in Netherlands, are also getting more. So you understanding the fact that previously who reclaimed land in the 19th and 20th century are again reclaiming in the 21st century. So these patterns are very interesting when you again talk about exposure to sea level rise. But these patterns are very, very fascinating. You see this very interesting kind of construction style and design being coming out on the water. But the land use itself is again very interesting, because you look at there's so much diversity. Because there's industry being built in Luanda, in Istanbul, a park has been built, same as in Shanghai, Rotterdam port, an airport in Beirut, Macau airport, Hong Kong airport, Singapore airport, again all built on artificial land. Aquaculture, on the other hand, is also coming as a major role in reclamation as well. But looking at Jakarta and residential areas are coming, playing a dominant role. Something else, when you build land on a wetland, they are susceptible to subsidence anyway. Shanghai has faced land subsidence in past years, and it faces the challenges of land subsidence in many other cities. So again, looked at these major cities of their land subsidence only over the reclaimed land. And I found that Incheon in South Korea, the land subsidence rate goes more than 20 centimeters per year. That's a lot when you look at the sea level rise projections in that, just to adjust that kind of equilibrium. And so it's fascinating to really understand this kind of dynamics in reclaimed land and land subsidence. And although I need to verify my calculation in the airport, I emailed the airport authorities to just get if they're measuring land subsidence. I didn't get any response. So if you're joining in from Incheon or South Korea, please connect and let me know if I can get some ground measurements of land subsidence in Incheon. So again, this paper is published. I don't want to take much time. This paper is published in Science of Total Environment. You can have a look just to understand the sea level rise versus land subsidence. And all these cities are highly susceptible to future future flooding. The only thing, the missing puzzle, which I do not know, is what is the height of this reclaimed land. So they're building sand, and how much sand is being poured. So they're lifting up the land. That's something I need to calculate to really understand if the amount of land being built is at what height than the sea level rise. And it's something I'm trying to really understand. Again, this is kind of a 3D model, just gives an idea where there was a maximum subsidence level, and you can see Incheon going down the subsidence level at more than 20 centimeters per year. Again, that's an aerial view of the Incheon International Airport, where you can see I did the cross line of that to really get the land subsidence, and it's much more subsiding on the far end here in the Incheon International Airport, because it's being built on in between two little estuarine islands. So it's shallow water. It's being building two islands and being merged together. So I don't really be surprised if this land is subsiding at a very fast rate. Because I'm not going to go very deep into sea level rise projection, because I think there's a lot of attention being given, and it's good that it's been given into sea level rise. But I think there's a need to really understand the land level rise as well, and also to consider reclamation and not the old land mass, because they don't consider any of the land being built. So cities like Jakarta, the fastest sinking cities in the world, is facing these frequent flooding anyway, and the government is still pushing towards reclamation, and that would be a very, very big issue. When I gave a comment in the NASA Earth Observatory just to highlight this issue of Jakarta and how this sinking city is still building land, and land is being built for high-end commercial and golf courses. There's a lot of morality, politics, geopolitics, environmental issues which act together into reclamation. And again, I would like to focus a little bit on the construction and where exactly the sand really comes from to build this land. And it's a big investigation to carry out. It's not going to take much more time. I'm going to highlight a few drivers. Economic drivers play a dominant role. Ports are the major driver of many cities, really, that they kind of expand. Besides that, prestige tourism like Dubai, like Penang in Malaysia, like Panama City in South America, all these cities are building land for big hotels and for residential commercial usage. The whole term of conservation is coming up. In China, we something have as the ecological civilization, and so there's a push for conservation, and reclamation is used sometimes to create these artificial wetland parks and for other uses, and that's questionable, really, and it really depends on how it's been constructed, what subspecies, the biology. So you see that there's a multidisciplinary thing, and it also goes with coastal protection. In Shanghai, I've seen hard sea walls being constructed, but there's also there's also eco-engineering happening there as well. So the kind of hard adaptation engineering of reclamation, see these around the world. Everywhere I've been and everywhere you have been, you've seen this hard construction, very hard to maintain. You have to spend probably every 5 years, 6 years to maintain these. There's maintenance costs add to it. But mitigation also comes, and eco-engineering, and so nature-based solution is a hot term which is coming up now, and every city governance is trying to adopt that. And I'm very keen on understanding of how the land which is already being built, which has already destroyed the ecology, coastal ecology, how that can be adjusted with the nature-based solutions. Because the land is being built, there's no point on destroying that land. That probably will damage the ecosystem even more. We have to live with it. We have to understand how we can actually incorporate that into the nature-based solutions. Conclusion, coastal reclamation is globally, it's widespread, it's happening in your city. If you're in a coastal city, I'm in the UK right now, and I went to Portsmouth, and Portsmouth is reclaiming land. So there are cities, very small cities, or all coastal cities are reclaiming land. And although many cities in the West, in Western Africa, they are reclaiming land, but it's particularly very much prominent in East Asia. Economic drivers are very much at play, but prestige development, it's very interesting how Dubai, in China, in India, in Indonesia, in Malaysia, in other cities, these very interesting kind of prestige construction, this designing being happening at the coast. Sometimes I feel like I'm in an alien planet. Climate change, sea level rise, subsidence all suggest that there's a need to consider reclaimed land and coastal protection in such areas. And largely the physical environment are really unaccounted for. There's a fantastic land reclamation video done by City Beautiful. They mentioned my paper, that's why I'm showing it. But they also explain it very nicely. And so you can have a look at this video. The 13 minutes video gives an idea of reclamation in the 21st century, really. So I've given the link, and feel free to have a look. This is my website, my QR code of the website. I do some mapping work. I've started my blog as well, but I do a lot of community engagement just to let the idea out about reclamation. And also because it's such a multidisciplinary, so I cannot just stick with physical geography. I have to talk with sociologists and biologists. So it's a very multidisciplinary subject. I'm very keen to connect and communicate. I'm in the UK now, and if you're very keen, if you are also, I'm very happy to meet, probably online and cannot meet in person. Thank you very much for your attention. This is a picture I took from just flying across Dubai. This is the islands in Dubai being built now, and much of them are being eroded every year. Thank you very much.
Wow. Okay, Dhritiraj, thank you so much for this kind of talk. And so in this Source to Think community, many talks talk about the material from the river and delivered to the delta, and also further, transport to the coast, to the shelf. And here now we have the, the human activity, the reclamation. that's very interesting. You give us such good global perspective view, what's going on now. Let's see the audience now. If anybody have any question, you can go ahead to unmute yourself and ask Rick. Okay, let me ask some questions, Rick. Do you have any number? Because you go through many different locations, cities, any number, country by country or city by city. What's the area of the reclamation in the last decade or something? Any that kind of quantitatively definition?
Yes, I do have, and I've just finished that paper. I do have at a city level, I do have at a country level as well. At city level, there's city like Shanghai, as I mentioned, going beyond 500 square kilometers. There's city like Nigeria in Lagos, reclaiming substantial amounts of land. That's exactly the paper I'm supposed to finish over the weekend.
Okay.
But it will be out soon. There is numbers on how much land is being built, and substantially it's in South Asia. I can give you a number actually. I do have in the PPT.
Okay, because that will be make your research more, how to say, quantitatively defined, and more, could be used have more implication. Otherwise, we can see, oh, look at the area, but how much? We need a number.
Yes, no, definitely. I do have these numbers. For example, in cities like in a city like Shanghai, Tianjin, Indonesia, it goes beyond 6,000 hectares.
I see.
6,000 to 12,000 hectares.
Yeah, because when you publish, if you can make a list, said all over the world, which city or which country have the most land, or maybe big country of course could be have big, but city by city, that could make a lot of sense.
Of course, that's something I have worked it out already. I do have that data. I have written it as well, and it just got rejected last week from one of the Nature journals, and I'm going to apply for another one. But that's being in the process.
Yeah. And also, if you want to be published something like a Nature Geoscience or something, so besides the number, if you can calculate how much of the sand used. And so then further, we can discuss where the sand comes from. Is it from the local dredging, from the deep sea, or from the imports the sand, like Singapore? Like they may be imported from Cambodia or from Vietnam, and those can match with the global sand dredging data. Exactly.
No, definitely.
Yeah.
Tracking sand, I think I joined the talk by Christopher Hackney, and he was talking about they are working in Newcastle University to track sand mining in Cambodia, and that's something fascinating, to use satellite imagery to see those sand small boats carrying sand from one place to another, and to quantify that.
Yeah, you should talk to him. Maybe you can combine
the two
together.
Absolutely, we are in touch. Definitely, it's in the plan.
Yeah, very nice. So anybody else? Any questions from our audience? Anybody? I think that's
very used is where it is from, and very interesting direction. Yeah. Thank you, Francis. Yeah.
Hi. Yeah, I just Paul basically said my my point, which was about the how much sediment's being used and where's it coming from. But I just also wanted to say thanks. That was a really great and clear talk, and it was also nice to hear my home city of Portsmouth being mentioned, which never is. So it's interesting to know that they're also doing land reclamation.
I was there last week, and so like as we go along the coast, there is this big banner saying Atkins is a big company, and they are reclaiming land, and they say it's about coastal protection. The main tagline was like, old structure equals to coastal flooding, And so they're building more coastal structures and kind of reclaiming the beach area as well. And so again, the question for them, from me, is the maintenance cost of it. Because after 5 or 6 years, or even 10 years, when the cost goes high, and again you have to repeat the same procedure. So that's the interesting part. It's not like city like Dubai or Shanghai, the big cities. Of course, they need to build, but the cities like Portsmouth, which is probably one small district of Shanghai as a population, cities like them are also kind of, the population doesn't really play a dominant role in this sort of expansion, really, because rich people, poor people, or middle class people are not living on reclaimed land. So there's a lot of societal issues which arises over this new land, artificial land being constructed. Thank you, Francis.
Very interesting topic. Yeah, thanks again.
Hey, Francis, if possible, you please also recommend some of your colleagues to also give a talk to this series. Absolutely, I'll mention it. Yeah, yeah. Oh, if you want to update your research, you're welcome to give a talk again. That's very, very interesting, because we need a more quantitatively number. For example, like the Japan, the airport, and Hong Kong, and many airports, they try to dredge in the sand and reclaim the land. And so if you can category, so like the major airport, harbor, or some big recreational like Dubai, or how much that sand was used to claim land, how much the area, and where the sand come from. That's one thing. Other thing is the beach nourishment, doing some kind of repair, try to do. I mean, we talk about this, but we don't have a good number. Yeah, the problem really is to get the volume, because I can get the area. So I'm getting the horizontal ones. I know the length. I know the area as seen from the space. The main glitch here is to get that volume of sand, really, to get that. I know it's a challenge, but we can get an estimate based on the depth. An estimate for sure. Roughly the thickness. I mean, this is the bulk number. And so, because for example, just like Chris Hackney, he did, about the sand jet, that's very hard to global scale. But if he can do some kind of area by area, then can somehow add it together, at least get a good sense. Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Interesting. Very, very good. Anybody else have any discussion, anything? Good. Okay. Cool. We see our friend from Vietnam, Mr. Tang. Dr. Tang, how are you? Are you there? Hello. How are you? From Hanoi. Yeah. We cannot hear you. Good. So otherwise, Director, when will you plan to back to Shanghai? I'm not sure at the moment, keeping in mind the situation of flights and everything. Yes. Yeah, just be careful. UK is crazy now. Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm always home. Yeah, cannot go out to my reclaimed land. But yes, I'm just around here, and so should be able to finish that paper and give you the numbers. Okay, wonderful. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, keep in touch. Absolutely. Okay. Thank you very much for this. Thank you, everybody. I'll see you guys in next year. Yeah. Thank you very much, Professor. Thank you very much, Professor Liu, for doing this for everyone. You have been extremely kind and giving your time for the community. Thank you very much. Oh, it's happy to do that. Thank you very much. Okay, see you next.